Hello, and welcome to another episode of Northside Now. This is a podcast where we take you on a tour through all the ministries and latest happenings around Northside Church to keep you better connected with your church family. My name is Kevin, and with me, as always, is my co-host, Glenn Miller.
Hello.
Hey, Glenn.
Patrick has had his spurs jangled.
Yes, so I wonder if he has it framed yet.
I talked to him a little bit.
Did you?
On the day that we're recording this, which is one day post-surgery.
Got it.
And he wasn't sure.
He didn't remember it, obviously.
Yeah, so he doesn't know if it's in a glass somewhere or if it's been ground. He doesn't know. So I guess Elizabeth didn't tell him. And since he woke up, so he doesn't really know.
Wouldn't that be funny if he has a little urn?
That would be so cool.
Of like dremeled bone shavings.
That would be cool. That would be cool. Well, since he's out, we went and found us two special co-hosts tonight. So we have with us Celeste and Dr. Claire Rikard. And so welcome to the podcast room.
Well done.
Hi.
Hi, thank you for inviting us.
All right. So Celeste, say your name and a little bit about yourself. No, just say, hi, I'm Celeste, so everybody will know who's your voice.
Hi, I'm Celeste.
And Claire?
I'm Claire.
All right, very good. That way we know who you are.
Very formal we are here in this fabulously decorated room.
And what do y'all think about the podcast room? Isn't it the most decorated, coolest room you've ever seen?
That's very manly.
It is the church's best kept secret.
Mm-hmm.
It is.
And most people don't know how to get here still.
Yeah.
After all of these mini episodes. It's hard to believe.
Maybe we can talk Patrick into bringing his spur up here and hanging it in the room.
Yes. Well, we needed a mascot.
We needed a mascot. So
yes.
So cool. Well, we're glad that y'all are with us tonight. Or really, I keep saying tonight because we're recording this at night, which is a little rare for us.
That's right. We're usually doing it in the daytime.
Yeah.
I don't know if it'll be better because now we're more awake or because now we're more tired.
We'll have to see. But Kevin, you brought up a news flash you saw a while ago.
Well, it's probably not new as you're listening to this now. We've been talking about sports a little bit off and on. We talked about football starting, of course.
Yeah.
College football is a big thing for many people, and the pros have now started as well. So if you listen to any kind of sports talk radio or anything, the topic of the summer, among many other quarterback topics, was Tom Brady.
Yeah. And
he chose to take a little vacation of sorts from practice. And so the question is why? Was it some trouble at home? And perhaps it is.
Yeah,
But we'll find. I'm sure we'll learn more. But what we were talking about really was, would we enjoy being at that level of scrutiny, in the public eye?
That fishbowl.
Yeah, because a lot of, especially, I've got teenagers in my household, and some of them are enamored with famous people, right?
Yeah.
So at some point, I think we all consider, what would it be like to be famous? What would we like to be famous? What would it be to walk a red carpet or, whatever? And for me, I can absolutely say I do not want to be famous in that way.
Well, I think Celeste is, just to be honest with all of our listeners, Celeste is my daughter. And, she's a grown adult now, but she grew up with that whole thing of, I know your dad.
That's right.
Mm-hmm. No matter where she was, I know your dad.
Yeah.
So, and Claire, you're a football coach's wife.
I am.
So a little bit of a fishbowl there.
Yes.
So,
although I don't think everyone knows who I am yet, because when we came up here, it was smack in the middle of COVID.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So we're easing into things.
Yeah. So what about y'all? The fishbowl of that kind of stardom?
I don't think it would be for me. I definitely don't think it would be for me.
Absolutely not. No.
I think it'd be really difficult to do the things we kind of take for granted, going to the grocery store, which is not super fun. In my case, I don't enjoy that. But my wife apparently checked out behind Kelly Clarkson in the Target in Hendersonville, in Nashville.
Yeah.
She wasn't really up too much on who that was, but she said, I think that's a famous person. I don't know who they are.
Wow.
The story that she tells is that Kelly was loading up gift cards for Christmas.
Oh, cool.
So, $1,000 here and, $1,500 there.
I do the same thing.
Whatever it was.
I do the same thing.
But how many of the things we think about every day, going through the Chick-fil-A drive-thru, I mean, could you do as a celebrity without being hassled?
Yeah.
Really.
Oh, yeah.
All you want is some nuggets and fries.
Yeah.
You can't get out without it.
And I think we may have mentioned this before. We hope that Nashville doesn't lose that, because in the past, people could do those kinds of things in Nashville, the stars, and they talk about that a lot. They're pretty open about that. Where LA, maybe it's not as easy to do some of that.
Yeah.
At least parts of LA.
Yeah.
And I think about, with everything with the Queen dying and all the changes there. I mean, they went through the whole lineage of the family, everybody. I saw a thing the other day, and how much each of them are worth.
Oh, yeah.
And, where they live and how much that's worth. And, that's just kind of creepy.
Too much information.
Too much information. Even though it's a big thing, it's every eye in the world was looking at, or is looking at y'all for a while at least. And, I don't know, it's just different.
Well, and you think about, I don't follow this at all, really, but you can't help but see it at some time where on Instagram or whatever, there's a picture of fill in the blank celebrity and what they're wearing today and what they went to this a diner or cafe and here's what they ate. And all of this stuff is just so, everything's under a microscope that it's not surprising that they have some of the potential behavior and mental issues that they do because everything's scrutinized.
Well, and Brittany is Brittany maybe on someone else. It just came out. I just saw it come through not long ago. After the summertime, it's the celebrities in their bikinis and all that stuff, and they're in a fight about body shaming or something like that because the paparazzi's following them everywhere trying to get the shots. Oh, they've lost their physique since the last movie or whatever. And two of the stars, I don't know if y'all saw this or not, but they're fighting about body shaming deals because someone made a comment about the other one. And that's just.
Well, in that particular industry, it is so much about image.
Oh yeah.
That if things change, it's a big topic of conversation, which is really unfair because I don't think any of us have any of the bodies that we see. Even the people themselves with photoshopping and all of the things that we've talked about this before. And it's particularly, I think, in the public eye, it's starting to be understood, particularly harmful for girls, but at the same time, it's harmful for boys because you see, whether it's Men's Health or whatever magazine or exercise routine, if you don't have this look, then you're not as important as other people. And as Christ followers, we know that's not right, but still, it's hard to avoid.
And that actually leads us into why Celeste and Dr. Claire are here with us today, because they are both pediatric. Celeste is a pediatric nurse.
Yes.
And Claire is a pediatrician.
Yep.
And so they work at Rainbow Pediatric over in Humboldt. Of course, they go to church together. They work together. So, they're together a lot. So in the world of pediatrics, which includes what? Day you're born?
Yep.
Till what? 18?
18.
Is it a hardcore 18 now, or is it like 18, 20?
It depends on your office as far as outpatient pediatrics. And so a lot of offices have the policy of if you go to college or some kind of post-high school, school, then they'll see you till 21.
All right.
Once you're 22, you're a grown-up. We don't like
whether you like it or not.
Yeah.
So what are you seeing? And I know you can't tell us names or nothing, and because of HIPAA and all that, and that's totally great. But at least you see trends and things that are happening. And we're going to talk about some of those kinds of things tonight because we want to talk kids and their health. And, we may touch into all kinds of different subjects, but this is a great one because we've kind of flirted with this subject a little bit before and talked about it early on in our episodes. What are y'all seeing when it comes to body image and stuff in our young people? And how early are you seeing it? Are you seeing it
so early
in little ones, or everybody just thinks it's teenagers or junior high. So what are y'all seeing in that world?
I can start and speak on this. I think we're definitely seeing things at younger ages than ever before, or maybe it's not starting out as at a younger age, but kids are more willing to talk about it.
Oh, okay.
At least with us in some degree. I had an elementary schooler the other day talking about some things like that happened on the playground as far as body image goes, or he said this about me. And I was like, what? And it's things that I guess in some ways we would see as innocent or, he's just being mean or whatever, that are really serious when a 5-year-old girl takes them to heart. Right. And so, I would say that social media has definitely, and just the access that children, not just teenagers, but that children have to media and the, if you want to use it, quote unquote, outside world, rather than just what's right in front of them in their homes, has definitely had a huge impact on generations to come, for good and for bad.
Yeah. Dr. Claire, what about, and I'm not going to say doctor anymore. That drives me a little bit crazy.
Please call me.
Don't know you as doctor. It's Claire. What about the guys? I mean, I know we talk about a lot about the girls, and Kevin mentioned the guys because it is a growing, I know as in youth ministry, we're hearing more and more about guys and body image and things. What are you seeing? Is that true in what you're seeing? And because what you see is West Tennessee, and that's kind of what our listeners are about. So what about West Tennessee? What about our guys?
Yeah, we see a lot of body issues in guys as well as girls. We don't have really great numbers as far as actual medical literature because, as you know, like for the past several decades, everybody forgot to ask the boys and they were just asking the girls.
Yeah.
So now we're starting to realize, of course, it's really affecting boys. And I have absolutely seen in my male patients that there's body image issues on one end of the spectrum all the way to the other. Lots of kind of varied dieting trials, they try a lot of interesting dieting fads.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of them are from sources that are absolutely not evidence-based, as we know, like all of their things. 100% TikTok, yes.
Yeah.
And in medical school, and specifically like in my pediatric residency at Le Bonheur in Memphis, I worked with the adolescent medicine and the GI doctors, and we did a eating disorder study on our patients at Le Bonheur in the outpatient clinics, and a shocking number of them were male.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so it's something that I try to ask all of my teenage patients, and it's something we just need to be aware of, and it has nothing to do with your BMI as far as it doesn't matter how tall you are, how short you are, how much you weigh for how tall you are, and it does nothing to do with your race or socioeconomic status.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, and in a way, I think I'm just judging by my own family. Mm-hmm. So I have 5 girls and 2 boys, and the number of things that I hear being talked about or tried on the boy side it's crazy.
Yeah.
Well, I should try this. They're talking about it on TikTok or Instagram or whatever it is. And because there's sort of been this vacuum of, it's really more a female problem.
Yeah.
It's sort of grown like wildfire on the guy's side. And of course you have all the supplements, the protein powders and all the whatever. And especially as you get closer to high school, if you're in athletics, then there's that whole muscle building routine, and there's a right way to do it. But, I think it's expected in a way culturally for all guys, whether they're athletic or not. And so it becomes, to me, and we've talked about this in the last couple of years with COVID and everything, it becomes a mental health issue. Absolutely. That, whether it's FOMO, as we've talked about, fear of missing out, lots of different things. It's just something that I think it would be good for all parents to talk about.
With the guys and the girls as well, how much do you think the graphic novels, the superhero movies, they see all the great big muscles or anything, the wrestlers we have today, our young people coming and going, I want to be Kurt Angle or whoever, or is it more just literally what they're seeing at school and on the street and just on the social little zones that they're on?
I think don't get me wrong, we've had a lot of Spidermans.
Yes. Spiderman is big right now.
Oh, yeah.
Spiderman,
we've had a lot of him in our office. But really, I think more so than what you're saying, all of the massive number of superhero movies and TV shows and everything. Definitely, it's a comparison game, but it really stems to something that is at the heart of what Celeste and I see every day, which is mental health problems, right? They go hand in hand. And so the past 2 years, the amount of depression and anxiety has really skyrocketed. And so then added onto it is just the body image kind of spirals down a little bit, and they go together. So.
Yeah.
And I don't want to be the one to call out, the elephant in the room of COVID, right? And what it's done to the mental health of our adolescents and our teenagers. But I think it's less of being in social circles and they were taken out of that for a couple of years and isolated in ways. And I think that did a lot in the negative side of mental health for their body image and who they know they are or they're not.
Yeah. Yeah, there's no doubt there. We've talked about that a whole ton. Being closer to the medical community, do you feel like we as a culture are prepared for the mental health, whether you call it a crisis or not? So in terms of folks going into family practice or going into the psychology route, how do we deal with the great numbers of mental health issues with a smaller number of practitioners? Any thoughts? I don't have the answer to that one, by the way.
I don't have the answer to that. We definitely, this week has been the week of, we do not have enough
mental health professionals, especially in rural West Tennessee.
Yeah.
We are not in a food desert in most places here, praise God, but we are in a mental health desert.
Yeah. I mean, me and her called a crisis line the other day, and I was on hold for 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
And we were in the room for a long time.
On a crisis line.
Right. You're preaching to the choir here because we have many issues we're working through as a family, and it's been frustratingly difficult to find a provider, number one, but then a provider that is sensitive to our particular need. And there's so many different variations of that it's difficult. I understand that from a professional standpoint, difficult to be able to identify all that and gel with each particular patient. So it's something we continue to struggle with, but hopefully it will become, as we all become more aware, we can advocate for it. But it's definitely something that's a hot topic in our family.
Yeah. Well, it's a hot topic in youth ministry and in every episode and stuff of what's going on with kids. Let me ask, I know there's a million different causes and reasons for mental health issues and things like that, but how much do diets play into some of the stuff? Is there any research, or y'all see anything that all of a sudden you begin to go, oh, that kid's eating 10,000 Pop-Tarts a day or whatever, and all of a sudden they are having these issues? Are you seeing diets and things, or are you seeing environmental issues? I know it's a hard question, but because there's so many different variables in there.
It's definitely multifactorial. Yeah, definitely.
Well, and I'll throw out a question there too, as they're pondering that deep question.
Yeah, I mean, we've got them. We're going to ask them.
The topic in my mind and with my particular children is caffeine.
Oh,
you know, in terms of kids having mochas when they're 5 years old and things like that, and Monsters and the Bang, all of the
whatever cool
energy, quote unquote energy drinks, 5 Hour Energy, all these things that didn't exist in its current form when I was younger.
Sure.
What role does that play? I mean, there's all kinds of hormonal impacts, all kinds of things, but I feel like caffeine is one of those things that is a generational issue. That, I mean, lots of people drink coffee forever, but it's different now, right?
Yeah, growing up, I don't know any little kid that drank coffee, and now I see little kids that talk about, I like coffee. So
yeah, I mean, I think sometimes parents are shocked at the age that we start asking, does he have any caffeine drinks? And that's what, 3? Mm-hmm. I believe we start asking that question at 3 years old.
Wow.
And sometimes parents are like, what do you mean? No, absolutely not. And other times parents are like, yeah, he has about 6 Cokes a day. So I think there's a wide, vast, I don't know what word I'm looking for. There's a wide range. There is a wide range of answers we get within that. But definitely, I think 20 years ago, if you would have asked a parent of a 3-year-old if they had caffeine, the answer would have unanimously been absolutely not. And today it's like, oh yeah, well, I guess I didn't really think about it.
Mm-hmm.
From a medical standpoint, what does caffeine do in a young person's body that maybe is different than an adult, but maybe not?
They do tend to be more sensitive to caffeine, right? And so all of the things it's triggering your sympathetic nervous system, which is like kind of like your fight or flight, right? Your heart rate goes up. Like we all know that, right? You have too many coffees at Panera, like your heart rate goes up, you get a little sweaty. The younger you are, the more sensitive you are to that. And also, I have not had a 2-year-old personally, but I'm sure you guys can attest that like we try not to mess up sleep because it's really easy to mess up their sleep, and they're so sensitive to caffeine that it really does affect your sleep. And even for older kids, the best sleep hygiene is to avoid caffeinated drinks, usually after lunch, definitely after noon. And so part of the mental health question that you had asked earlier, one of the big things is sleep. Kids are not sleeping enough. And there is so much evidence about sleep, of concentration, like poor concentration, poor focus, like much more emotional lability. It's a lot harder to control. I mean, you guys know, you've all had nights, we don't sleep enough, but we are seeing a ton of long-term kind of chronic sleep deprivation. And you just can't quite get a grip on your emotions. With long-term sleep deprivation, and grades start to drop a little bit and anxiety just skyrockets. And so we are seeing a lot of that. And I will tell you, a lot of it is taking this to bed. It's taking your phone to bed.
Yeah.
And I always tell parents, like, if you can't control yourself on your phone and you're kind of scrolling until you drift off, 100% your kid's up till, whenever, if they take their phone to bed. But that is definitely a huge thing that I'm seeing kind of across the board.
And you think about teenagers, well, they're used to just staying up late and they sleep in. So they're getting a lot of sleep, it seems like, because they're sleeping in, especially on a Saturday. But maybe that's not true. Maybe teenagers need more sleep than...
Yeah, teenagers need... So once you kind of become a middle to late teenager, it's a little different based on the kid. But usually, about 9 to 10 hours that they need.
Wow.
And it totally stinks. Our biology is a little bit against us. When you are a teenager, your brain is literally set to go to bed later. So it is unfair, and we have to kind of fight it because school starts so early here.
Yeah.
And it didn't used to be, right? It used to be like we rose with the sun and went to bed with the sun. But
yeah, it makes me a little crazy.
Didn't they start starting classes a little bit later?
A little bit.
Just recently here?
It's still 7:15 at Jackson, Madison County for high school, middle school, and high school.
Yeah, I have a lot of kids who have to wake up at 5 or 5:30.
Yeah.
So if you're going to bed at 10,
That's right.
And there's some kids.
And 10 is early. 10 is early for a lot of kids.
Yeah.
And if they're riding the bus, they're getting on some of these bus routes at 5:30, 5:45 in the morning,
Right,
to get to school, and that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
I mean, there's just no sense in that.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you mentioned sleep, because I think I saw a post recently on Facebook that you guys talked about sleep. And for me, it's only one of those things as I've gotten older. Now I want to sleep. Of course, when you were a kid, you hate sleep. It's like some of my kids say, I hate naps, But now a few of them have wisened up now that they're older. It's like they're going to take a nap whenever they can.
Yeah.
And I think adults, I definitely found this in myself where I was chronically sleep deprived. There were some days when I'd pull an all-nighter in a row or whatever it was. When I was younger in college, cramming for whatever exam, I could do that with some assistance of Mountain Dew, but now I can't. And I've realized that I would prioritize sleep over almost anything.
Oh yeah, same here. And I tell kids too, all the stuff that they try to do, and this applies to adults too, but all the stuff that we do during the day, and for them it's like we're studying, we're in class learning, we're in sports practice or orchestra or band practice or whatever, and all of that stuff, all that learning, all the muscles being built, all that happens while we're sleeping. And so over time, if you're not getting enough sleep, that's why our memory gets a lot worse, because all that stuff you learned, it just kind of falls back out. And then also, the guys really like this, but it definitely applies to girls too. All that muscle that they're working on when they lift and stuff, that's happening when you're sleeping. Because your body is busy when it's awake.
Rebuilding.
Yeah. And also a lot of kids like this, but it's true. And you know this. I mean, every grandma says this, but it is true medically. You're getting taller when you sleep. It's happening when you sleep. It's not happening when you're awake. So if you don't get enough sleep, I don't know when your body's going to grow.
What are some of the big trends that are coming to pediatrics right now? And I know depends on which doctor you ask on which morning show, right? But what are some of the big trends that really are popping up with pediatrics in that world right now?
Well, obviously COVID, and we don't have to talk about COVID yet, but COVID. There's a ton of polio in New York right now, so we're very pro polio vaccine.
Yeah.
Is that a vaccine or is it just a drink?
It's a vaccine.
It's vaccine.
I thought it was a drink.
There is an oral polio.
Oh, okay.
So we get the muscular one. And a big thing, well, obviously mental health. We are definitely talking a lot about diet. And for kids, that word is confusing because it sounds like I'm going on a diet, but diet meaning, of course, the things that you're eating and drinking. Because over the past 20 years, there has been such a problem with weight in America. But now, finally, thank you, COVID, we are starting to change the narrative of how we talk about weight. Like when I have a kid come in who we need to sit and talk about their nutrition, and really in our office, we call it a weight check, and we need to stop because it's really not about the actual number, right? I'm a scientist. I like numbers. It's how my brain works. But really, our goal is for these kids to grow up into healthy, strong bodies.
Sure.
And so we're trying to change the narrative about when we talk about this, not just like, you're overweight, because then they go home and their parents are like, you got to lose weight. You can't eat the pasta.
Right.
And that's really not the message. The message is we got to get some veggies in and some protein so you can get strong and stay healthy and your heart can get strong. And so we're really trying to change the way that we talk about weight, because it's not about the weight. It's about healthy hearts.
Because you can be in great shape,
Exactly.
have a 4% body fat percentage, and because your height weight ratio, your BMI says you're
high.
still obese.
Yeah.
And the military is recently changing their verbiage on this as well because of that very same thing. Yeah. And so they're looking for healthy things.
Yeah, I think we're trying in our office, and I think in pediatrics and AAP just in general is trying to focus more on a healthy lifestyle. So now like all the big specialty hospitals, Vanderbilt, Le Bonheur, what have you, those are the ones in our area, have a healthy lifestyle clinic. It's not called the obesity clinic anymore.
Right.
Oh, okay. All right.
So it's called healthy lifestyle, and it's about, we're shooting towards mentally healthy and physically healthy. And what does physically healthy look like? Like, yeah, sure, we could stand to lose a few pounds probably. However, ultimately the goal is that your heart is healthy and that you think about yourself in a positive manner. And how are we going to get to thinking about ourselves in a positive manner? Well, let's focus on sleep. Let's focus on our water intake. Let's focus on, getting the right vitamins that we're supposed to get. I mean, we see so much vitamin D deficiency. Basically, everybody walks in vitamin D deficient.
Wow.
Really?
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
Everybody. We don't get enough sun. We don't get enough tuna fish, and we don't get enough spinach. So,
And mushrooms. Don't forget mushrooms.
I love mushrooms. Shroom. Making me hungry right now.
Oh, like we can make an omelet, right?
I know, totally.
Yep. So everyone's vitamin D deficient. That's something else we're seeing recently.
And made out of juice.
But I love that you mentioned those things: water, sleep. Most all of us have access to water. Thank goodness for general municipal systems that tap water, while it may not taste great,
tastes fine.
Is available.
Yes.
That's my point.
Yes. And sleep is free.
And sleep is free. Now,
Amen.
sometimes you do have to adjust your schedule to work on that.
Or maybe you need to, like you said, just back off on a couple of things.
Yeah.
Prioritize.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah. And I think because it's been really confusing for me over the last 15 years, 20 plus years with kids, the food pyramid that I learned about as a kid.
It's all gone.
Now, is it upside down? Is it on its side? I don't even understand what all that is, what the recommendations are anymore.
Now it's a plate. Yeah.
So that would be helpful. But as a kid, I don't remember in our health class, we never talked about sleep.
No.
We talked about exercise.
Yeah.
Jump
rope for heart.
We didn't talk about water. And
No,
so those things I just find really interesting. You talked about the plate. So tell me a little bit more about the plate. Educate me about.
Yeah, I wasn't even aware of a plate.
I've seen this.
Okay.
But I'm really confused. Should you have vegetables? Should you not have vegetables? Should you have pasta or carbs, quote unquote? And now, is it pasta, protein? It's been really confusing for me to understand what the recommendations are. But I think ultimately, while you're looking that up, the weight is really the wrong thing to think about first.
I think so too.
And I mean, that came from, in the late 90s, everyone was like, oh my gosh, what have we done with
America?
fast food? Right. And Fast Food Nation came out and all those things. And so I think everyone just completely freaked out, which is valid. We
needed a little.
That is the major comorbidity in America.
Yeah, exactly.
But then we really, we screwed up the narrative. And I think we messed up a lot of kids. So, okay. So it's called My Plate, which makes more sense than a pyramid, probably, because it is the shape of a plate. But I mean, there's a lot of things that are very similar. And so you go to myplate.gov. It is in English or Spanish, and they have an app.
Oh, cool.
Well. It has a little tracker of like how many vegetables I ate today, and then how many, fruits. And there's nothing about like how many calories, because that's not what our goal is.
Right.
And then there's also lots of like sample recipes for families, snack ideas, all that kind of stuff. So it is a very helpful website, but it's based on the 2020-2025 dietary guidelines for America.
Okay.
But as you can see here, it's just a plate.
Oh.
It's a plate with different colors on it to represent different food groups. So majority is veggies. And then there's kind of equal parts protein and fruit. And then Grains is actually a little bit more. So it's right in between veggies and the others. And the best thing is like whole wheat grains. You know, if you're going to buy spaghetti, like get the whole wheat pasta or spaghetti, that kind of thing, or brown rice instead of white rice. And then on the side, it's a little cup of dairy. So if you're having like yogurt, fine. If you're having a little thing of 1% milk or something, that's fine. And it looks like a plate, so it helps people think like, oh, I would have a serving size of fish with veggies and a little rice and a fruit on the side.
You can help visualize what that actually would look like on your plate.
Yeah.
Yes, definitely.
Yes. And so something we run into in rural West Tennessee is, okay, Dr. Claire, that sounds great. That sounds beautiful, but healthy foods are expensive. And I've heard her preach on this before, so I'm going to let her go at it. But tuna's expensive. Salmon's expensive. Nice organic chicken breast, expensive. Spinach, it's $6, where bags of chips are $2.
Right.
Yeah. So we talk a lot about healthy food. Like, it does not have to be hard, right? Like, no one has to go out and make, like, I don't know, chicken succotash or something. Like, you can go out and buy
Suffering succotash.
I think that's what I was thinking. Like, you can go buy frozen chicken breasts, frozen veggies. You can go get those big, like, $1.99 per pound, big thing of chicken. And you, like, I do this. Like, I put it in the oven with some, like, Italian dressing on it, and I cook it for the week. Done. Chicken's very lean meat. It does not have to be fish. It can be expensive. And then frozen veggies and canned veggies actually have a lot of vitamins in them.
Oh, okay.
Frozen actually has a ton because you microwave it in the bag. It keeps all the nutrients in it. I used to think that they were kind of like cheater vegetables and they didn't count, but they have a ton. You don't have to like peel and rinse and chop it because there's a lot of families that don't have time for that.
Yeah.
You know, there's like little microwavable cups of rice. You know, like there are ways to do it that's not super expensive and super taking a lot of time. We have a lot of patients that are on WIC, and WIC covers a ton of this. They cover milk. Milk has vitamin D. If every kid gets like 2 cups of milk every day, that's actually huge. And so there are really good ways to do it. And really, this website is actually does have some really good recipes on it for families that are looking for good ways to mix things together.
Well, before we dive into some deeper ends of the pond, because I know we want to, what are some things like churches and nonprofits, you know, specifically churches? What are some things that we can do? Because I know there's a certain amount of what y'all do is actual science and medicine with the child. Then there's probably 95% of what you do is education with the parent who raises the child, right? What are some things that we can do as a church that would help partner in that educational process? You know, is there anything? Is it like stay in your lane church? But is it, I mean, I feel like there's things, you know, there's always churches and nonprofits help with homework and stuff like that. But are there real life things that we could maybe partner with and help do for pediatric world and helping some of this educational stuff?
That's good. No one's ever asked us if we want help with it. I mean, certainly I think, you know, we have a lot of health professionals in this church. And it certainly is worth like making sure, you know, I've never eaten Wednesday night meals here, so I'm sure they're good. But, you know, like looking at those and making sure we have healthy options for all the kids who like maybe need to get their veggies in because they didn't do it at school because they hate the school lunch, you know? So that's certainly something that we could like have one of our health, I don't know if we have any dietitians in the church, but like have them look at too. But yeah, I mean, I think the fact that we have so many options here for youth to come up here and play in the gym and exercise and run, whereas they might not always be able to like have somewhere at home that they can do that while their parents are busy. That's huge. That's huge.
I would say too, just as the church, starting in your own homes. Start in your own home, and that bleeds out into the community. And I think that's really important and something we forget about all the time is I'm preaching to kids, don't ever stick a Q-tip in your ear. And then what do I do as soon as I go home? I always clean out my ears with Q-tips. So bad. But I think just starting in your own home, creating the daily healthy habits for yourself that bleeds into your family, which then bleeds into the community.
Yeah, and they also like talk to their friends about it. Right? We actually have something in our office right now. One of our medical assistants has that huge thing of water, and it has like
it's like 68 ounces.
The real big ones.
And
I know what you're talking about.
Everybody in the office doing it. There's like 4 other girls doing it, and now several of their kids wanted a half-size one to take to school. And so it really is true. Like you start in your house, get everybody excited on board, and it does
It trickles.
It trickles, yeah.
What about allergies? West Tennessee, I've heard often is the allergy capital of the planet. And I would think that's true. You know, we have summer, spring, fall, pollen, you know, all those seasons here in West Tennessee. Are you seeing more allergies in kids, about the same kind of stuff? I know y'all haven't been doing this for 40 years or anything, but and you know, I know there's a lot of food allergies. Are you still seeing a lot of food allergies and things like that?
Yeah, I will say, any of you out there with babies, we do recommend introducing peanut at 6 months.
Okay,
and that especially, there's great evidence in babies with eczema. It way decreases their likelihood of having a peanut allergy later.
Really?
And so we're hoping that is also the case with children without eczema. I've not seen that research out yet, but
wow.
Well, I wonder, that's pretty interesting, because we've thought when we had really young kids, we were debating daycare or not. And we said, well, if they go to daycare, they're going to be sick all the time, et cetera, et cetera. And, well, that is somewhat true. That develops antibodies for later.
It was for Clay and Celeste.
I mean, it was true for
6 months.
Yeah, I'm sure.
It's getting better now, though.
But that is something that provides immunity for other things later, right? I'm not saying you put people in daycare just to
Get them
have that
sick.
Benefit, right?
Well,
to get them sick. But
we used to do that as, you know, take your baby to chicken pox parties or whatever, you know, back in the
Pox
day.
parties. Yeah.
So
not at Northside or Rainbow Pediatric recommend pox parties.
no, and
Or
we
COVID
don't.
parties.
or COVID parties, yeah.
We don't condone that either.
We don't.
So that's interesting.
Lots of allergies.
Yeah.
You know, we see lots of allergies. Yeah, we can't really comment on the trend because we're babies, fairly new in the field, but lots and lots of allergies.
Yeah. One thing that's cool about West Tennessee is there is still that rural aspect in a lot of ways. And our kids are outside and running and playing still to some degree. Yeah. And it's so refreshing to see when parents bring their kids in for having bug bites all over them. You know, like, yes, okay, we can work with this. But yeah, we see a lot of like allergies to grass and different things like that, eczema. I mean, we can't really comment on the trend.
But they, you know, and there's certainly like you can get referred to an allergist for allergy testing, you know, and a lot of times they're not going to say to do much other than avoidance. So there's also a lot of just clinical judgment, like, wow, for me personally, like if I sit in grass with bare legs,
it's going to be.
I'm really itchy and sad for several hours.
That's right.
Well, and sometimes it's hard to do because I know, like, you know, we were parents of the year one time, and Celeste was coming up. I'm having this GI issue. I'm having that GI issue. Oh, you know, suck it up. You just got the Miller stomach. Whatever. Take her to the allergist, and she's allergic to corn. Oops. And all of these corn syrup, corn, all this stuff. Guess what? It all got better after she quit doing some of that stuff. But, you know, so we all kind of fight some of these things sometimes, right? So
right.
Well, you mentioned it earlier.
That Rona.
Old Rona, you know, the old 70s sitcom Rona. Or was that Rhoda, I guess?
Rhoda. That was Rhoda.
Rhoda. So, you know, it's getting to be fall, and I'm thinking about going and getting flu shots or flu mist for my kid. And should I get a COVID shot as well? So, what do y'all say?
Yes, you should go get your COVID vaccine.
Yeah.
Please go get your COVID vaccines. Yay. We fully support the COVID vaccine in all approved ages, 6 months and older.
So you are a scientist. You're a doctor, you're a scientist, you're a nurse, you're a scientist. You study these things, and I know it's hard. And I know there's a lot of politics around all of it and everything like that. But as far as what y'all can tell, as far as what the literature coming to y'all from manufacturers, from other doctors, from medical scientists, from the research and stuff that y'all see, not from things that are passed over on
from our Facebook feed.
Yeah. You know, this is a fairly safe shot. I mean, this is safe.
Yes.
Isn't going to be creating zombies out of our children or whatever somewhere down the road, right?
Right. Correct.
So
yes. The way I like to explain it to parents, and it's hard to take stances like this. It kind of puts you in the spotlight one way or the other.
Sure.
And the way I like to explain it to parents is, look, we don't have a ton of evidence based off of what this will look like in 20 years. We don't. It hasn't happened yet. 2050, whatever, hasn't happened yet. However, what we are trying to do is negate some of the negative effects that come from the actual virus itself. And it could, in the long term, be a lot more dangerous for your 8-month-old to have long-term effects from COVID rather than this vaccine. And we have seen the long-term effects of COVID so far. I mean, technically they're short-term scientifically because it's only been a few years, yada, yada. However, we know what those look like, and we don't technically, I guess, know what the vaccine ones look like. However, we want to avoid what we can avoid. And that disease process is something that in part we can help avoid or at least negate, make it a little bit better.
Right. Yeah. And this is a little harder now because almost everyone has had COVID, right? And we've seen a lot of people with extremely mild cases of COVID. Like the majority, we have seen just 1 billion babies in our clinic with COVID, and they all do great, right? Like they have a cold, they're kind of sad, and they get over it.
Okay.
Or they have a little bit of sniffly nose. Meanwhile, mom has a fever, and whereas the flu, you're miserable for a week and you're really sad, and you're like, everyone is sad when they have the flu. And COVID is just such a broad clinical presentation. However, we have seen just like, especially in adults and older teenagers, I mean, we've seen really some devastating long-term side effects from COVID. We just have, right? And obviously the deaths and horrible things that have happened from COVID, which are more likely in adults, but we do see in children. And so the vaccine, remember, is not a live virus, right? Like it is completely tiny little parts of it. And so as far as when we give the COVID vaccine, the person who gets the COVID vaccine, it's not like staying in there.
Yeah.
It is triggering your body to be like, aha, I see you. I'm making my fighters. And then it leaves.
Okay.
Like the vaccine's not hanging out.
I like the way you explain that. That's good.
Yeah.
I'm glad you do.
Yeah.
Some of my patients do not.
They do not like that.
That's good. Yeah, I like that.
And so, whereas the COVID virus, we find it still. I just read an article in, I think it was AAP. Sorry, don't quote me. One of my medical emails I get. They're finding COVID just hanging out in people's tissues. Right, which is why we're seeing some people with really long-term fatigue. Right, some people still can't smell and taste. Like we all know those people, or I've read articles about those people. But whereas the vaccine gets in, gets out, did its job, the virus likes to hang out in some people, and we can't. The problem is like we can't predict who that's gonna be.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's not foolproof. It's not foolproof. Just because you get the vaccine doesn't mean you won't get COVID.
Oh, yeah, you're still going to get COVID.
You still going to get it. But the hope is that it negates some of the long-term chronic side effects.
/ also keeps you out of the hospital.
Yep. Limits hospitalization.
Yeah.
If you don't know anybody with long-term side effects, I can just tell you from my own family's experience that it hasn't been so much the fatigue as much as definitely they were early waivers. So they have taste and smell problems still. And it's changed the way they eat. Their diet is not the same because they don't like the taste of fill in the blank. It could be vegetables in our case, just makes them want to vomit basically.
One of your kids, chocolate was the thing.
Yeah.
That's
so there's
chocolate.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
But their diet is definitely not as healthy as it was before because of those foods they just taste different. They react different. And we've also experienced a bunch of the classic brain fog that happened early. We still have a couple of kids that are struggling with concentration. They just can't get there. So we're working through ADD or ADHD kinds of testing and investigation around that because they're struggling where they didn't struggle before, but they are struggling now with concentration and some of those things. So I think the long-term studies will hopefully substantiate that so that we can have things in place for support for those people. But right now, if you can avoid that, I would recommend it if you can do anything to help avoid that.
And I love the way you explain that too, because that makes a ton of sense. And when you've got young people who are athletes and those kinds of things, and they're passing out on the practice field, or they're older teens or their early 20s or 30s and are having strokes because of blood clots.
Right.
The virus is still in their body. It's not the shot that did that. It's the virus. I love the way you explain that because so many people are going, it's the shot that did it, And so...
Well, I've got a question. Change the subject just a little bit. What's the best part of your job?
Celeste. Oh, no, I'm just kidding.
Wow. We love working together. We really do.
Yeah, we do. Oh, gosh. I mean, there's the easy answer.
Yeah.
We just love the kids. They're so great.
It is. I think walking into a place where at some point that day is just going to be filled with laughter.
Yeah.
It's a really good place to be. It's a really good place to be. And oftentimes it's a hard place to be. There's some really hard parts about our job. However, at some point that day, there's going to be like just incessant giggles that you can't get to stop. And it's a great reminder, I think, of who Jesus is. And it kind of puts you in your place a little bit, which I appreciate about our job.
And I love the range of our job I just love it. When you are in pediatric training, if you decide to go into outpatient pediatrics, there's a lot of people that are like, oh, it's going to be boring. It's just going to be checkups and ear infections. And let me tell y'all, that has not been my experience at all. Lots of checkups, lots of ear infections, but I mean, like, you see 2-day-old babies all the way up until these old 21-year-old people. And there's just it's so fun. Like, you can have a 4-month-old that's just giggling and drooling everywhere and just thinks you're the coolest thing since sliced bread. And then you have a 17-year-old that's like, Dr. Claire, I really need to talk about, like, fill in the blank, really important, serious thing. And so it's such an honor to be a part of all those different parts of people's lives.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And don't let her fool you. A 5-year-old Spiderman came into our office the other day, and Dr. Claire, he pinned her with a web up against the wall.
It's a terrifying place to work.
We have a lot of fun as well.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Well, you both talked a little bit right there about your faith and how that plays in your professional life. But one of the reasons we wanted y'all here is because your faith and your faith journey has also chased y'all into a new zone here at the church. And y'all have started a new Sunday school class. What's the name of that class? Did y'all name it yet?
It's Rooted. I thought
Rooted.
maybe thought we were going to say it at the same time. And then
So I was going like, Rudy.
Yeah,
Right.
it's Rooted. We sat
Rooted.
with Daphne, Pastor Daphne, and thought for a while about that.
How did that come about?
I would say that there was just kind of a disparity at Northside that we noticed in regards to community groups within people our age. So people within their 20s and 30s, specifically post-graduating college. And we realized, I mean, we would get out of church and we were all kind of hanging out in Hope Hall together.
Oh, yeah.
And we kind of looked around and we were like, why don't we just start a Sunday school class?
Let's corral these people.
Yeah, there's like 10 of us in here, all the same age in different walks of life. But that's kind of what you get when you're in your 20s and 30s. So we just kind of noticed, I guess, disparity is a harsh word, but lack of community within that. So we decided to corral it, I guess.
I don't know why I said corral. You said spurs earlier. So I'm on a ranch theme. Yeah, really, that's exactly what it is. I think there just was a little hole, and that is a very common age group to have a hole in most churches.
It is, yes.
That is tough because people will go to college and then they maybe don't go back to church after they come back, or they go to a different church, and there's a lot of filtering after that. I've been to several churches where that's the case, and my husband, Will Rikard, shout out. That was something that God really put on his heart, and he had kind of been talking to me about that, and so I was kind of like filtering it by Celeste, and then she actually took the initiative to get it done. So we're really excited about it,
and it's popped up and it's grown pretty quickly and stayed pretty consistent, right?
Yeah,
I think we've met like 5 weeks now.
Yes, and of course, I helped start a Sunday school class, and then I'm out of town for the next few weeks. But I mean, it's been cool. Even my sister, shout out Summer, just got engaged, her and her fiance, and so we had a little engagement party for them at our house on Sunday, and an old high school friend of hers came up to me and was like, "Hey, I've been at your Sunday school class the last couple weeks. Where have you been?" And I was like, "What?" Anyways, but it's kind of taken flight, and it's been nice to just see people who I grew up with in a different light and in a more communal way at our current season.
Because that's kind of what happens with people your age, right? We kind of, we're going to make our weekend run here and weekend run there. So that does happen. That's not you're not quite up to that next stage where the kids are upper elementary and they're, unless you're going on a travel ball or something, you're having to hit school and you're just kind of in that groove all the time. So what kinds of things are y'all studying, It's not a parenting class or anything like that.
It's not, yeah. And we've got, like Celeste said, there's definitely people from all kind of types of life, because that's the nature of, your 20s and 30s. There are those of us that are married, single, dating, engaged, kids, no kids. Like, it's all over the place. And so, which is nice. So we all kind of came together, and We've been doing a study on James. We went through James this month.
Nice.
And so we just wrapped that up on Sunday. So we'll see what Will brings this Sunday.
And that's always a good study to do for any age range.
Yeah,
it was
for
a
sure.
little harsh. It was like, hey, nice to meet you.
Yeah.
And then we all had to talk about
Let's talk about racism.
Yeah, he's pretty.
Nice to meet you. Let me grab your tongue and rip it out of your body. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, cool, because we're glad that y'all have seen that and, address that need. And that's always cool in the church when the young people take the bull by the horns and kind of make it happen, right? So
I was just having a conversation today that as we go through transitions in life, that I think the most important part is that we don't be just passive, but we be active. We take action when we feel like there's an opportunity or when God puts a call on our heart, that we be bold and take action. Now, it's not always going to work out the way we want it, but I think that's our responsibility as Christians to be active, be intentional and be active. That filters down to all the things we've talked about in terms of diet. It doesn't just happen by accident that you are healthy. You have to be intentional. You have to choose the right foods. You have to choose to have a little activity and get off the couch and put down the game controller and do things. So I think that's a good lesson for all of us.
Yeah. Well, I want to say thank you to Dr. Claire Rikard and Celeste Miller, RN-BSN.
Oh, gosh.
And you're pediatric professionals here at Northside. No, seriously, thank y'all for coming in because, we've been talking about other different things and it's just been good to hear some of these things. And we hope that people take just a couple little tidbits and things that are going on. Like sleep is kind of popping up in my brain as a really important thing right now. So, yeah. So anyways, thank y'all for doing that and for coming. And who knows, we may have y'all back sometime if there's some really fun things down in the future because, we never know. I'm sure we'll have tons of people writing into the show. And
probably lots of questions for you that we'll pass along.
Bring on the questions.
But there's tons of stuff going on at Northside, and it's an active, thriving community. There's moments where sometimes maybe we feel like we're either stuck or there's a problem or a conflict or whatever. But the reason we have this podcast is we get to talk to so many people that are doing so many important things in the church body, but in the community. And that's just really encouraging and exciting, really.
Yeah, I bet you didn't know there was a pediatric dynamic duo in our church family, but there it is. So.
Boy.
But thank y'all for coming in and be a part of the podcast, Northside Now, and glad you're here. And, if you have any decorating tips for the room, you just keep them to yourself. All right. So.
Thank you so much for having us. We really appreciate it.
Well, Kevin, looks like we got a few things that are coming down the road.
All right.
Just not a whole lot, but Pastor Gary and several of the folks from Northside will be going to Israel.
Ah, yes.
As this podcast is out, they will be on the other side of the world. That's pretty cool. And Robin Bradley is one of those going, and she's going to be back with us talking about her trip.
That'd be awesome.
In an upcoming episode.
Yep, we've talked about the MSR trip, and so now we'll get to talk about this one. So we've actually talked about the trip many episodes ago.
Yeah.
But they're actually going to be on it, so that's great.
That's going to be cool. Another couple of things is See You at the Pole, a worldwide prayer time for students. It's a student-led movement coming up the 28th on Wednesday. And then that evening, we're going to have a dodgeball tournament out at the ballpark.
Oh, yeah.
And the cool thing about that is this is the first one we've had since COVID. And all the churches in town get together to throw this on. So there's nothing like telling a friend, I love you in the name of Jesus, and then whack them upside the head with a dodgeball. So that's always fun. And I guess for just the upcoming stuff that we have coming, I guess the next really big things would be Trunk or Treat at the end of October. That we want everybody to know, especially since we're talking about families and in pediatrics coming up then. And that's 3 to 5 on that Sunday, the 30th. And so want to mention that. I really think that's about it, don't you?
Yeah, we talked a couple episodes ago about the upcoming things when we talked about all Thanksgiving breakfast and
all
Christmas.
The way into Christmas and all the way to New Year's, actually.
Yeah.
But since Patrick's not here, we're not as up to date as he is because he has to keep all this stuff going in front of everybody.
Yep.
I think that keeps us updated.
Well, guys, thanks for podcasting with me. And thanks to all of you out there in the world for listening. If you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to help support the podcast, please share it with others, post it on social media, or leave a rating and review. To catch all of the latest from us, you can follow us on Instagram at Northside Now Podcast. Go to our website, northsidejackson.com, or email us at podcast@northsidejackson.com. We hope to hear from you soon. Once again, this is Kevin.
This is Glenn.
Celeste. Claire.
And that's what's happening at Northside Now.